Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're speaking with 35-year-old online bikini posing and lifestyle coach who is also a wife and mother of 2 children, who was born in Virginia and raised in Florida, where she met her husband before moving to Arizona 15 years ago. She started competing in 2019 and did 14 shows before earning her pro card at her 10th national show, which was the most recent 2022 North Americans. I got to witness that, which was really, really awesome. And she won in both first and open and the overall in Masters 35 plus. So that means 2 pro card pieces of paper, big posters were given to her. Super awesome to see. Super excited to have her on. Welcome to the show, Kasie Rodriguez. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much, Celeste, for having me. It's an honor and a dream.
Oh, good. Well, it's my pleasure. And before we get into everything, I'm going to have to ask you if there's something you do or think about or a ritual you have before your heel hits the stage.
I do kind of have a little ritual. I've been listening to your podcast for the last 4 years. So I've definitely been thinking about this question for a long time. And
Aw.
I want to say this year, made sure I had a routine, or at least thought of what I do before I hit the stage. And I want to say I get in my zone. I listen to YouTube motivation or music, like one of my playlists. I usually will at least have like one earbud in when I'm backstage. That way I can focus, but then I still keep one out just so the girls can talk to me or someone talks, so that
Yeah.
I can acknowledge them. Girls like to, chat backstage, so I don't want to be rude, but I do get in a zone. I kind of tend to get a little quieter than usual because I am quite talkative most of the time. But when I'm in that zone, I just try to keep to myself a little bit, focus on pumping up, practicing my posing, and just think about the entire prep and all the work that I put into it before I hit the stage.
Love that. Like really reflecting on your journey, getting in your own headspace so you can bring it.
Yes, because that's probably the hardest part for me is the stage and the presentation. It is my favorite day.
Yeah.
I do enjoy show day, but I definitely has been my weakest, probably in competing in general, is stage day and practicing my, doing my posing. I just get so nervous. You see, I when I post videos of my posing of me on stage, I'm usually always shaking, and I like showing it on stage, like showing those moments, because I've had a lot of girls reach out to me. Even when I earned my pro card, I still stumbled on stage. I was still shaking, and it happens, and it's completely normal. And you are going to not place well just because you're nervous. It does sometimes play a role, but they're definitely not going to. If you show up your best that day and you execute it on what they want to see from you, it's not going to detour them from giving you that, that first place or that pro card, just because you were shaking on stage, as long as you were able to execute your posing.
That's a really good point, because I think that's a concern a lot of competitors have, whether new or established, is like if they mess up or they're shaky or they trip, like they won't be able to do well. But we've seen people trip and even win shows.
Exactly. I mean, I won, my not only, two pro cards and also the overall. And I, if you look at my video that Gilco Productions, made for me, I stumbled coming back from my back pose to my, into my transition pose. I stumbled on there's cords that usually run under the carpet for the lighting, and I hit that cord. And when I was coming back around, and I stumbled, and you can see it in the video, but you just gotta keep your composure and just continue to flow through your posing and do your best to finish strong.
Absolutely. I love that. It's great to hear you talk about that from experience because a lot of times we hear people come on here in general just say like, I just pray that I don't trip. I pray I don't fall. But even if you do, it's not the worst thing that could happen as long as you're bringing your best and you stay composed.
Exactly. I agree.
So before we get into like your entire journey, I want to hear about your pro debut because this just happened, at least when we're recording. It just happened this past weekend. So how was that experience and was it everything you hoped for? Like talk to us about it.
Yes. It was an amazing experience. I was in San Antonio, Texas. It's a Spectrum production. It was the San Antonio Classic. Sandy was our head judge, and I just wanted to get back in front of her after North Americans because I did win the overall and two pro cards. She said she really didn't have any feedback for me. She was like, "You were pretty much perfection that day." So she's like, "I just need you to get on the next, pro stage and." Um, so that I can compare you to the other pro athletes, and then I'll be able to give you feedback to work on. So I definitely wanted to get back in front of her again. Also, San Antonio is where now my best friend Megan Kraut. You'll see we compete. We've been competing together at the national level since last year, and North Americans, and we roomed together. And she actually is local to San Antonio, so I was able to stay at her home. I brought my daughter with me, Jalen. It was her sweet 16th birthday on October 11th, 11 days before my pro debut. So we flew her with me to my pro debut. That way she could see my pro debut, and we planned a celebration after the show to celebrate both her sweet 16 and my pro debut together.
That's so
Um,
awesome. Is she really
yes.
supportive
So,
of you as a competitor?
oh yes, she's one of my number one fans.
That's amazing. And she's always been that way, or did this develop in time?
Oh yes, my family, my husband and my daughter and my son have always been 100% supportive. And actually, they used to, when I competed at the amateur level and was competing more local to Arizona, they attended all of my shows. The only ones that they didn't attend is if I was flying to the East Coast for national shows, was the only time that they weren't present. So, but yes, they've been 100% supportive of me competing.
So they have been to most shows. Do you guys end up turning it into like family vacations or little getaways?
Yes, yes, most definitely. Yes.
That's
And
awesome.
we we love to travel, so that's one good thing about competing is you're competing in different cities and sometimes different states. So it's nice to um I always like to do research of the area that we're going to and find things to do in that area with my husband and kids post show. That way we make a weekend out of it.
That's really cool. And now, have you had any really positive experiences or maybe things that really stand out to you?
From
Traveling and going to shows, like any
from
favorite places?
oh oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Um I love Pittsburgh. I really love I've been to Pittsburgh now, I think 4 times for national shows.
Yeah.
Um, I did North Americans 2020, North Americans 2021, Masters Nationals 2022, and North Americans 2022. So yes, 4 times. And I just fell in love with that city. I love the people. I love just the history and going. There's different parts of Pittsburgh that you can explore. There's downtown. There's South Side. So I and just the food and just the atmosphere and the weather, just everything about it. I've really enjoyed my trips to Pittsburgh. Lots of great
Yeah.
memories. And of course, I went pro there.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say
it'll
that's
always
like,
hold a special place in my heart.
yeah, that's a great city for you.
Yes.
And you had gone through a lot of different national shows before winning your pro card. So what were some of those lessons you learned from that journey?
Oh, oh man. There was lots of lessons. Um, well, my first national show in 2019, I actually didn't have a coach. I
Oh,
um, coached myself into that show. It was USA's 2019 in July. It was in Las Vegas. And actually, on the way there, my husband is driving myself and the kids, and we're headed to Vegas. And I told my husband, okay, I had no expectations going into the show other than I was like, okay, by the end of the weekend, you guys got to help me find a coach. I was
yeah.
like, the goal for this weekend is find a coach. So, um, really, it was just kind of to show up and see what level of competition I was up against at the national level, and find a coach. And that's exactly what I did on my way home from Vegas. I reached out to a few coaches, and I ended up working with Dave Strickler after that show for my next. I want to say I did three national shows with him after that,
Wow.
before switching to Ashland. So yeah, in 2020, I did 3 national shows with him. My second, third, and fourth national show was with Dave Strickler, and we did well, and I learned a lot from Dave. Um, but I just felt like I needed someone that was a little bit more knowledgeable in the bikini division. And I had been following your podcast and listening to your
Hmm.
coaches series, and that really helped me, find a coach that was more experienced with the bikini division. And I had been kind of looking at Fit Body Fusion during my 2020 season when I did those 3 national shows. Jamie, was always there every single one of those national shows, and just saw how her and her team interacted with their athletes and just how knowledgeable they were. And um, I had been following Ashlyn's journey in 2020 as well. And they were, at the time, she was local to me. She was in Phoenix. And I had started working with her. I hired her in December of 2020 at the end of my season for the 2021 season. And then um, I want to say we did 3 national shows together last year and then 3 national shows together this year. And a lot of learning experiences. For me, it was like, nailing, hair, makeup, tan. I used to, I mean, from head to toe, everything is different from when I did my first national show to my pro card win. I mean, hair, my first national show, I had curly, I curled my hair. I went to straight. Makeup, my first national show, I brought a makeup artist with me that wasn't really experienced in show makeup. And I started working with the makeup artist and her team when I, this last 2 years. Tan, I used to purchase the tan from the venues. Like I would go with whoever the promoter had there at the venue. It could, it varies depending on the promoter. And then I now do the DIY Pro Tan. My suit is still the same color. I did try purple in 2020, but then I went back to blue in 2021. But even my suit is different, even though it's the same color, same rhinestones. I have had my suit bottoms and my suit top remade. Both, I want to say I did the suit bottoms I did last year in 2021. I went with, I had like a Brazilian cut to the, I think it's is it the pro cut or the micro cut bottoms? And then I had my suit top remade at the beginning of this year before I started my season. I had it actually made, the triangles made bigger. That way it was more coverage. My heels, I used to just order, fabulous heels off of Amazon, and now I ordered my shoes from the Shoe Fairy this year. So literally from head to toe is completely different from my first national show to my pro card win. I mean, every detail matters when you are fighting for that pro card. It comes down to every little detail when it comes to your presentation, and then also even peaking. I mean, that was a learning experience, finding out, learning my body and finding out how to peak me properly going into these shows. Everybody's different. So that was, trial and error, trying to figure out how to nail my, especially because when you're when I live in Arizona on the West Coast, and most of these national shows are on the East Coast, and we have a lot of traveling to do if you live over here on the West Coast to a national show on the East Coast. So if you don't realize how much it affects your physique doing all of that traveling. So I've had to learn to, show up a couple of days early. I actually have to show up a lot leaner than probably most girls that live over there on the East Coast. I would have to come in like 2 pounds lighter than I typically would if I were competing over here on the West Coast, just so that I had kind of wiggle room. When I would show up in Pittsburgh, then I would be, a couple pounds, up from all the traveling, and then allow myself a couple of days to bring down the water, before her stage day. So, I mean, it's been, it's a science, and it's just trial and error and finding what works best for you.
It sounds like you've learned a lot along the way. And those little details you mentioned, what came to mind for me is like if you're getting in front of a panel of judges that judges Olympians or people at the Arnold, they're used to seeing a particular look, and usually that does include like those professional makeup artists, or at least looking like competition makeup. They're used to seeing like Shoe Fairy or really well cut and made suits. So if you can almost trigger that same look, it's gonna spark an association in their mind of like, oh, they look more like an Olympian than maybe the person next to them in like a Brazilian cut. Now, obviously it matters what cut you have for your body, but at the same time, I do think those details matter in the sense that if a judge can recognize it as like an elite version of a competitor, they might be more likely to reward that.
Yes. And they do reward, it when you get feedback from the judges and you come back and execute on that feedback, they definitely reward you. And that's how I rose this year. I want to say that was the biggest, I want to say that's my biggest success this year, was getting feedback at Universe and executing 3 weeks later at Masters Nationals, and then going to Masters Nationals and getting feedback and executing on that in 6 weeks before North American. So They definitely, if you get feedback from Sandy and you show up at your next national show with with that feedback, then she will reward you. I mean, I went from um, fifth place at Universe to second place at Masters Nationals to first place at North Americans. So it does work. I truly believe that.
That's super awesome. And what was that feedback you were getting?
For the first time ever, conditioning, tightening up. I've always, my feedback in the past was always you need to grow more upper body to balance to your, your physique to your lower body. And this year, this is the first year I have not heard you need to grow your upper body. I was like, thank
Wow.
you. Like, uh, yes, it was a challenge. But because I am 100% lifetime natural athlete, so I just didn't know if I could ever, develop the upper body to match my lower body. And but I was determined, and it was nice to hear from Sandy at Universe, my very first national show of this year. She says I absolutely love your shape this year. She's like, you finally have the shape and the balance that I've
Mhm.
been looking for. She's like, you just need to come in, tighter. And so um, that motivated me a lot to keep going because I knew I was almost there. I just needed to, drop some more body fat and I would, finally accomplish my pro card win.
Yes, and you did. What
Yes.
were the what were the things you did to tighten up?
um, it was, I want to say it was intensity in my cardio training. I had been following, my plan from Ashlyn, to a T with the cardio. And I just think my body had just adapted to like that speed and incline on the treadmill for so long that I needed a change to increase my heart rate. So I actually, when I got back from Universe, I switched my cardio from tread incline walking on the treadmill to the Stairmaster, and I kept track of my heart rate and my heart rate zone. Like I, was a personal trainer for 10 years prior to getting into bodybuilding, and I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to um, training and like strength training as well as conditioning. And I knew I needed to make sure my heart rate was staying in that 70 to 90% heart rate zone in order to be burning body fat. So I really kept track of that. I wasn't really keeping track of it prior to Universe because I was just like executing the plan to a T. And when I got back, I talked to Ashlyn and I told her, I said, hey, my heart rate isn't where it needs to be burning body fat. I'm going to, play around with my cardio and my intensity. And I wear an Apple Watch when I do my cardio and training. And that's what I did. I, made sure I was in that 70 to 90% heart rate zone. And from Universe to Masters Nationals, there was only 3 weeks, and I dropped 4 pounds. And then my feedback from Masters Nationals was just a little bit tighter. And so I had 6 weeks between Masters Nationals and North Americans. So I came back from Masters Nationals, body was a little ran down from pushing so hard. So we brought me to maintenance for about 2 weeks. I came back with a cold. I actually wanted to do USA's, which was a week after Masters Nationals. But I came back from Masters Nationals. One, I got stuck in Chicago on my
Oh
trip home.
gosh. What
And
happened?
yes.
Was it
So we
weather?
flew from Pittsburgh to Chicago, and it was like the pilots they were either working too many hours so they couldn't work anymore, or pilots didn't want to work. And so I mean, the whole airport was filled with people all over the place, and like with delayed flights, and they said it had been like that for days. And me and Megan had flown in there as it was our where we were had our layover, and we ended up being there for like 6 hours. It was only supposed to be
Wow.
like an hour, 2 hour layover. We ended up being there 6, 7 hours. I didn't end up getting into Phoenix until I want to say it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I still had a 3 hour drive home. So I didn't get home until like 7:30 a.m. Monday morning. And so Tuesday morning I woke up and to do check-ins with Ashlyn, and I was sick. And it got bad as the week progressed. US days was that Friday and Saturday, which is in Vegas, and it was only 5 hours from me, which I
Mhm.
have done US days every year. I did it 2019, 2020, 2021. So I mean, I had planned to do it, and but I'm so glad I decided not to do it, because my worst days were Friday and Saturday prejudging and finals. So my body was run down. I needed a break. We pulled back a little bit on cardio. We got my food up to maintenance for 2 weeks, and then I grinded hard for 2 weeks. We dropped calories, dropped increased cardio, and then the last 2 weeks we reversed me into North Americans,
Mm.
and that's how I achieved my pro card.
Yeah, it's so awesome too because you have changed a lot with your physique over the years. Like clearly you've been executing on feedback and showing up. And something I noticed was the change in fullness. Like you seemed a lot fuller in a good way. Like your glutes had grown, your shoulders looked really good. Like everything was just maybe more pop to it. So you had some improvement seasons between shows to build and work on bringing something better every time. So I was hoping you could share what you think was your most successful building phase and why it was your most successful.
So my most successful building phase was last year after North Americans. I went into, I want to say that was probably my first building phase, because prior to last year, I had never taken more than 8 weeks off
Wow.
in between competing with my two previous coaches. So I just I never really, and the thing is, we should have, because that my feedback was, you're not balanced from top to bottom. You need more upper body to balance out your physique to your lower body. After we received that feedback last year, um, after North Americans, we ended my season, and I went into my first really building phase with Ashlyn. And I want to say it was 25 or 26 weeks. So it was the longest I had ever been in a building phase since I started competing. And I think that's what my body needed. I mean, I um, put on some good amount of body fat. I put on some good amount of muscle. I pushed really hard. I was determined. I've had there's been coaches in the industry that thought that I wouldn't be able to do it naturally. And at North Americans, I was like, after North Americans, I was like, you know what? We're gonna go into this building phase, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna push myself, and I'm going to come back and show them that I can build the upper body naturally without um, any enhancements, and prove to everyone that it can be done naturally. And so that's what I did. Ashlyn had programmed me shoulders 3 days a week, and I pushed. And one thing I want to say that also probably contributed to that success was not being afraid to ask someone near you at the gym if you to spot you. I don't have a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer myself for, like I said, for 10 years prior to competing. So I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to proper form and technique, but have always never really had a like a training partner. Sometimes, I have the kids with me training and they will help me, get through those last few reps. But I want to say last off season, it didn't matter if it was the person next to me or one of the guys I knew from the gym. If I was on my last set and I wanted to push to that 6 or 8 reps, like I had no fear to ask last year. I was like, can you please spot me, for this last set?
Yeah.
Because I was determined. And there was moments that, um, that I pushed to failure to the point where it hurt and I cried. I'll never forget one of the guys walking up to me in the Smith machine. I had been doing military press and I just like started bawling after a set, and he walked over to say hi to me and he sees me crying and he's like, "Are you okay, Kasie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just just a little emotional over here, like dying."
Aw.
Like, but I had pushed myself, to
Was that
that to
pain or
that
was
level.
that like was that from pain or was that like pride? Like what was that crying for?
It was a combination of pain, pride, but also I had been going through a lot at that time in the beginning of my year, right before we started. Well, even actually in the beginning of my prep, of my 2022 prep, I was having some food allergies and my eyes had swelled shut. It was really bad. I had eczema all around my eyes. If In the beginning of the year, I used to post like pictures in my story, and even I might have even put some on my page. I do remember telling people about it, and the people in my community knew about it. I was having to wear a hat when I worked out, to protect my eyes from the sweat. Um, but I was going through this phase that in at that time, with these food allergies, and we couldn't figure out what it was. The I had gone to a allergist, and he basically said that with the diet that I eat as a bodybuilder, he's like, the best thing is to eat your clean whole foods and introduce something, one at a time, and to see what it is. And it was basically process of elimination, like trying to figure out what it was. In the end, I ended up finding out it was I was using um liquid aminos to season
Oh,
my chicken and veggies over rice, and I'm allergic to soy.
oh my God.
So yeah, so in the end, we discovered it, but it just it took so many months for me to figure it out. Like I said, it was process of elimination, um and it took it seemed like forever for me, but it took a while to figure out what it was. And during that process, I had these eyes that were just swelled shut. I wear eyelash extensions year round and they weren't staying on. They were falling off. Every time I got my lashes filled, my eyes would swell up even more.
Wow.
I was supposed to have a photo shoot in April. I had to cancel the photo shoot because I I was like, I'm sorry, my my eyes are pretty practically swelled shut. I was hard to even, I was affecting my eyesight. Like it was, like it was even hard to drive sometimes.
Mm.
So and then I was still, training and doing cardio, and I'm a sweater, so the sweat was just pouring down, causing it more irritation. So I was just going through a really rough time in the beginning of the year as I was starting my 2022 season. And between pushing hard, wanting to achieve my goal of, growing some shoulders and lats,
Mhm.
and the combination of that and just what I was going through at that moment in time with my health, that I was emotional. I was like, I really want this so bad, and I wanted it so bad, and I wanted to, like I said, prove that you can do this naturally. You don't have to take any kind of enhancements. Like if you put in the work, you put in the time, you'll achieve it. It just might take you a little bit longer.
Did you ever feel pressured to not be natural?
Yes. Oh, yes. Because like I said, there was coaches in the past that said, oh, I don't think you're going to be able to do this naturally. And
Mm.
even there was a coach that walked up to Ashlyn after North Americans last year and had suggested something to her for me. And I was like, I mean, Ashlyn has been 100% supportive of me being natural, and she kind of just brushed it off. And, we went into improvement season, and it was never brought up, like it was brought up to us, at North Americans, but we personally never discussed it after that. Like it was not even a thought, for us. Like she knew what my goals were, and we stuck to it. So
And is there a reason you want to be natural?
um, well, I have kids, that are looking up to me. I have a daughter and I have a son. My son is extremely athletic and is an athlete himself, and I just want to set an example for him and for my daughter, um, and and for other athletes too. I've been following the bodybuilding industry for, oh my goodness, I want to say at least 10, 12 years, so I was interested in competing 6 years prior to even getting into competing. So
Yeah.
I've been following the industry for a long time, and it was always a goal of mine to accomplish, my professional status naturally. I never once ever thought, anything else. I've never wanted to do any enhancements, and I don't know. I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn. I like to, I'm very determined, so, and stubborn. So if I set myself, a goal for myself, or say I'm going to do something, I like to, do it. So, I said I wanted to achieve, my professional status, naturally, and I was determined to do it.
That's so awesome. I think it's like it's also sometimes you set this goal for yourself or you have this belief, and when you are stubborn, regardless of your beliefs, it's like you just want to fulfill that intention or that goal and prove it to yourself.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
And
so
I get,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I've had a lot of, athletes reach out to me, and through Instagram and Facebook, and it's just when other athletes know you're natural and they're natural and they want to stay natural, they reach out to you and just and say thank you, for sharing your journey and sharing that, this is possible, so by me achieving my professional status naturally, like it shows other athletes that it's possible too, when because some, just probably like they might not think it's achievable, and so by me doing it, and them seeing other people achieve it, that they realize that it's achievable for them as well.
Yes, I have to say, like me being natural and knowing that you did it naturally and with time and that commitment is very inspiring to me. And I'm still inspired by non-natural athletes, but like just seeing your physique and how phenomenal you look, like you wouldn't know, like you
Mhm.
look so amazing. And that's a testament to your efforts and time and patience. And I think a lot of times it can be hard for people to celebrate growth in an improvement season, especially like with weight gain or the requirements to actually build muscle. And it obviously paid off for you in that, I think you said, yeah, 25, 26 week improvement season. So what did you focus on to keep your mind right and focused on that result that you ultimately wanted?
just following the program, following, eating, reversing and eating the macros and doing the training. With Fit Body Fusion, we have an app and we log all of our workouts in the app and just watching, pushing myself to progressive overload. And because I mean, it's not like I have a trainer there, pushing me. You have to push yourself if, no one else is going to do it for you. So I just focusing on progressive overload, focusing on eating my macros. I mean, that those 25, 26 weeks, I mean, to tell you the truth, it feels still like you're in prep, because
Yeah.
I was still training. I was still training 6 days a week. I was still doing, cardio was down to 5 days a week, but you're still doing cardio. You still have a routine. Um, you're still tracking all your macros, like everything, it was pretty much the same, as if in your prep, you're just going the opposite direction, you're instead of losing weight, you're gaining weight, otherwise everything else is pretty much the same, like the commitment and the dedication and the drive and is all still the same as if you're in prep, your goal is just different.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's really in no different. Just the goals have changed.
I love that. I think that's a really important point because I don't think prep and improvement season should be that different from each other. And when you sign up for a sport like this, you have to be able to commit to 365, like every single day counts. And that process doesn't change that much, but the results and the way that your physique looks is ever evolving. And if you can't respect the growing season the way that you respect the prep season, the cut season, that's going to be problematic for longevity as well as success.
I agree, 100%.
So let's talk about you winning your pro card. And I want to start by asking you what your why is, because you had posted in that leading into your 2020 season or the year of 2020, you had decided to really commit to the road to pro. And I wanted to hear like what shifted in you to make that a main focus and what was that why behind it?
Hmm. Well, one, I had been, working towards earning my pro card already, for 2 years, and I had in 2021, I had received second place at Junior USA's, and then I got fifth place at USA's, and then sixth place at North Americans. And I just, and I, I didn't like that I had gone, I felt like I went backwards, going from second to fifth to sixth through in 2021. So I was determined to come back improved. Um, I wanted to execute on Sandy's feedback and bring it to my 2022 season because I mean, national shows are expensive. I know you know this because you're at the
Mhm.
national level too. And I mean, um, I did 3 national shows in 2020. I did 3 national shows in 2021. And I was hoping not to have to do 3 national shows in 2022, but here I ended up doing 3 more. But
Like
it's
also,
extremely expensive.
I was just gonna say, can you break down, like, I think this is a good opportunity to really share with people what to expect as far as expenses go. Like, if you were to tally that up, what would you say you invested financially? Not even energetically, just financially.
Uh, I want to say you're going to spend about 3 grand a national show, especially if you're having to travel from West Coast to East Coast. And I want to say just this year alone with those 3 national shows, we spent anywhere from 10, 11 grand. Um, I mean, I've learned over the years, how to um, like how to save money and budget a little bit better, because my first national show, USA 2019, I probably spent like 5 grand on that show.
Damn.
I made a lot of rookie mistakes. Yes,
Like
a lot of
what?
rookie mistakes. And one, I like did a VRBO house. I
Mm.
got a house with a pool, and I didn't do like a hotel. So that alone was expensive. Plus, USA's is a 2-day show, so it's
Yeah.
always, that show is more expensive as it is. I think the entry fee is $325 there. Then you also have 2 days hair, 2 days makeup, 2 days tan. Back then, I wasn't doing my own hair. Back then, I wasn't doing my own tan. So I was paying for 2 days of hair, 2 days of makeup, 2 days of tan, and then the travel of gas to USA's. But um now currently, with flying, these flights are expensive. Luckily in 2020 we had some breaks because of COVID. You were able to get cheap flights, but hotels didn't really change in price. So I want to say, if anything, I saved a little bit in 2020 just because of COVID. Flights were a little bit cheaper, but 2021 and 2022 flights, went back up, especially this year, gas prices, when gas prices went up, so did the gas, planes take fuel. So
Mm.
those airline tickets got really expensive this year. And like I said, I probably, at least now I do my own hair. So I save, money. That's $120, that I save by doing my own hair. Doing the DIY tan, you're going to save, usually the tan costs you about $150, to do it through the show tan. When you buy your products, you buy all your products for under $150, and usually you can use your products for 2 or 3 shows. Um, so I've saved there. The only thing I don't cut corners is makeup. I cannot do makeup. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to even attempt. I'm not a makeup. Um, I don't normally wear makeup. So the only time I do wear makeup is on show day. So I'm not a girl that puts on makeup every day. So I'm not
Me either.
experienced. So I
I
will
do
leave it
my
to the
own makeup.
professionals.
I did my own
Yeah.
makeup, but I never wear it. And I think show makeup is now the only makeup I know how to do. And I have this like one video of Carla Garthwaite memorized from YouTube of her just like breaking down the process. But other than that, I'm like, I don't even know what the purpose of any of these things are. Like, what even is this product?
I know. I did, my first year, when like I said, I brought in 2019, my first 2 shows, I brought a makeup artist with me. And so we actually had researched on YouTube how to do show makeup, and we went out and bought all the products. And so that's actually how I got started, was by, I bought all those products. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Celeste, like buying things that you don't even know what they're for. You're like, what is this? Like, what
Yep.
is this? Never even heard of this before.
I thought
And
concealer was just something for pimples, but apparently it's not.
yeah, and highlighters and
Yes.
contouring, and oh my goodness, all this terminology we're not familiar with. Um,
So you were
but
saying,
yes,
sorry to
it's definitely,
interject.
so yes, it's because I mean, you can do a regional show for $1,000, $1,500 at the most, if depending on how you budget your money. But yeah, these national shows, you're gonna spend about 3 grand a national show. They're not they are not cheap by any means, especially this year, because now that I was um 30, I turned 35 in May. So I was paying for both, masters and open. So
Mm,
now I am paying for two classes. And so that, like, universe, it was 275 a class. And so was North Americans. So
yeah,
that's $550 just to enter the show. And this $3,000 I'm talking about is just for the show. That is just your
right.
airfare. That is just your your entry fee, your tan, your makeup. I mean, that's not including your coaching fees, your gym membership fees, your food.
Your
that
supplements,
that
your
3,000,
suits.
yes. That $3,000 is just like for that show, just the expenses for that show. That's not including all your monthly expenses and weekly and daily expenses that you normally would have, being in prep.
Yeah, and I think that that's really the cost is underestimated, and people will be like, "Well, why do you even I'm sure there's probably people listening like, "Well, then why bother doing it or why spend all this money?" And it's like, "Well, it is worth it when you love this and when you have the passion and that drive. It is really worth it, and you do get smarter with it." And you mentioned the DIY tan. You guys, if you're listening, they gave us a discount for the show. It's just Celeste. So if you go to protanusa.com, you can use that for the DIY. If you want to test it on your skin first, just get the travel kit and do like one and see if you like doing it yourself. But it's so freaking easy. And when you do so many shows, because I've done 13 shows now and I've learned a lot along the way too, Kasie. Like I get that. And sometimes what happens is and I've learned continuously too, but you think, oh, I can cut this corner. It won't be a big deal if I do that. But you get in a groove. And once you find your groove, I think you can fine tune the details more. And it sounds like that's really what you've been able to do is you've found what's worth spending more money on or what's worth kind of budgeting on. But you mentioned you've learned a lot of budgeting tools and skills. So what do you do to prepare for a season, or what were you doing to prepare for those investments?
Um, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So my husband is the one that finances all of my competing.
That's
Thankfully,
awesome.
he has a great job and is very supportive of what I do. So I'm very grateful for him and for all his hard work because he does finance this very expensive sport for me. Um, and so that I mean, when you asked earlier about, pressure, I mean, I did between, I just, I did feel a pressure at this point because I had done so many national shows and I had been so close so many times. I mean, the only time I haven't been in the top 10 was my very first national show, in 2020. Like I said, I think I got fifth. It was fifth at Junior USA's, and then I got eighth at North Americans, and then I got fifth at USA's. And then 2021, it was second at Junior USA's, fifth at USA's, and then sixth at North Americans. So I had been so close so many times. People are like, "You're so close," and just the
Yeah.
pressure. I did feel the pressure for a while there, especially last year, 2021 and 2022. There was a lot of pressure, to earn my pro card, just because everyone's like, "You're so close, keep going. You're so close, you keep going," And then the pressure, for my husband, because I was like, especially this year, I really didn't want to. We, built a brand new custom home and
Wow.
which was extremely expensive, especially with COVID. We started the process when COVID hit, and all the price of lumber
Oh
and block
God.
and everything went up, and so I just I felt for him too, like the pressure. I felt the pressure to earn my pro card because I knew once I got my pro card and I was at the pro level, it would be so much cheaper to compete. And so I just didn't want to keep, that burden on him of having to keep funding all these national shows. So I felt the pressure to earn my pro card so that he didn't have to keep paying, $3,000 a show. So yes, the pressure was definitely very high these last 2 years to earn my pro card.
How did that pressure affect the way you showed up?
It's probably why I shake on stage. I know people know this.
That's hilarious. So it was there and it was present and you knew like a lot of people were it's actually interesting. The So I was I was thinking, with the pressure, like you knew, okay, I need to show up and do well, but I'm imagining sometimes that would maybe get in your head. And it's funny how people expect, like people will see someone placing top 5, top 3, top 2, and they just assume like, oh, it's a given that you're going to get your pro card. But we as athletes know that's not always the case. So then that pressure is even more in your head because you're like, well, there's no guarantee.
Yes. And last year, like I was saying, I had, gone backwards in placing. So this year I was determined to get feedback from Sandy and execute, get feedback from Sandy and execute. That was one thing. I was very focused after every single one of my shows this year to get back to, get back home and execute on the feedback so that I can improve, because I was like, I'm not going to go backwards this year. We're going forwards. Like
Yes.
I was determined to improve every time I stepped on stage.
So awesome. And you did mention that she recognized that and that was rewarded. And I know after North American, she told you just like, get back up there. I want to see you versus the pros and see how you do. And you ended up walking away with a top 10 at your pro debut. So how did that feel? And what are you working on now?
It felt amazing. I My feedback from her was to come in slightly tighter. I want to say we brought pretty close to the exact same look to my pro debut that I won my pro card. I actually posted that on my Instagram today. It was pretty close. The
Yeah.
lighting is very different. Was very different at San Antonio Classic. So it kind of made it all, and not just myself, but all of us girls looked a little bit softer. I mean, being there with those girls in person, I mean, we were all shredded. But if you look
Mhm.
at our stage photos, we do not look very shredded. You can barely see our lines. I'm like, we looked way shredded, more shredded than that in person.
Yeah.
Um, so she did say to come in a little bit tighter. So we are going to bring me in a little bit tighter for Rising Phoenix in 11 days. The only other thing is because I'm more conditioned this year than I ever have been on stage, my suit bottoms are falling off
Oh,
at North Americans and also at my pro debut. So, but I didn't, because my feedback at North Americans was, bring the exact same look and then I can give you feedback at your pro debut. I didn't want to adjust my bottoms until after my pro debut and got feedback from Sandy to make sure she wanted me to continue to come in this conditioned or more conditioned, you
mm,
know, for the pro. So now that she said, I want you even more conditioned than this. Now I'm actually sent out my bottoms to my suit designer, and she's going to adjust them and send them back to me before I do Rising Phoenix. That way I can, one, not have to worry about them sliding down while I'm transitioning from pose to pose. And like right now, I actually like hold on to my connectors all the way up the stairs. And then right before my heel
oh,
hits the stage, I am letting go because I'm
girl,
like, oh
that's
my goodness.
scary.
Yes, it is. And so that's not helping me right now with stage presentation because I'm a little concerned about my bottoms falling off. Um, and that's the thing. I have a very long torso, and so in order to make my torso appear smaller and shorter, I need to hike up my connectors up on my hips and they need to stay there.
Yeah.
Well, right now they're not staying there. And so that's what Sandy said to me backstage. Is she's like, make sure your connectors stay up high up on your hips. And then I explained to her the situation and she's like, oh yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. So I
Oh,
so I did tell her, what my plan is. I was just waiting for feedback from her and that I was going to send out my suit as soon as I got home and then I would have it fixed before Rising Phoenix.
she judging there too?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
So my
awesome.
goal was to get feedback from her at my pro debut and execute on that feedback in the 2 weeks, for Rising Phoenix was what my plan was. I mean, I wanted to do my, get on a pro stage, and then I, I picked one more only because, like I said, it's in Phoenix and it's kind of a hometown turf for me. So it was an opportunity for my family and friends and local people from the community to be able to see me compete, in Arizona. So I mainly, did the second show just to, compete in front of my family. It's been a long season. I've only, in the past, I've only usually do 3 or 4 shows a year. So Rising Phoenix is going to be my 5th show and last show of this year. So it's definitely been a long season, mentally and physically exhausted. I'm definitely ready for a little improvement season, but I am, working to finish strong and execute on this feedback from Sandy. And because, like I said, she does award you for executing on feedback. So I just want to bring what she asked of me, and hopefully that will improve my placing going into Rising Phoenix.
Absolutely. And I'm sure with that mental and physical exhaustion, it's nice to know like you'll have family and friends and people from the gym there, I'm sure, because it seems like you've got a supportive gym community as well.
Yes, I do have a very supportive gym community,
Love
and
that.
a lot of them are coming. So, yes, there's a little bit of pressure going into the show to bring my best. I do want to bring my best not only for myself and my coach and to execute on Sandy's feedback, but also for my family and friends that are going to be in attendance. I don't want to disappoint anybody. So,
Totally.
um,
And I'm sure you couldn't disappoint them, but I hear what you're saying. Like I really get that. You want to bring your best, so it makes it seem even more worth it.
yes.
How did you notice you're feeling mentally and physically exhausted? Like what are some of those things you're realizing or feeling that's different that makes you want to go into an improvement season?
Well, this cold that I have isn't helping any right now.
That's always a sign for
Um,
sure.
yes. I mean, to tell you the truth, it's just more, I want to say more mental than physical at this point.
Yeah.
It just, there's been this sport, just kind of, I mean, with me and Ashlyn, we're a team. Like, it's not just Ashlyn's my coach and I'm the athlete. Like, we work, side by side together with my breaking my physique. Because, I mean, a coach can only do and know so much. Like, we know our bodies best. And so, um, you know, there's a lot of thought process that goes into competing and bringing your best every time you step on stage. And so, and I'm a thinker anyway. So, I mean, I am constantly like, how can I improve? What can I do? Like it's, like I said, when I got off stage for Universe, it was like, okay, I know I need to get my heart rate up, during my cardio sessions to bring that more conditioned look. And then when I got back from Masters Nationals, the same thing, like it was coming a little bit tighter. So again, I just need to do it. It was like almost like I didn't, I didn't have quite enough time to bring in exactly, there was only 3 weeks, so it was not quite enough time to bring in exactly what she was looking from me. So having those 6 weeks in between Masters, Nationals, and North Americans was made it where I had plenty of time to execute. And but there's just a lot of thought process that goes into this, and so it is mentally draining. And because I have been competing on the East Coast starting in May, I started waking up 2 a.m. our time in Arizona and getting in my first meal by 2:30 in the morning and getting to the gym at 3:30 in the morning because they're 3 hours ahead. And
Wow.
so I wanted to get on, basically their time zone, um, so that when I showed up in Pittsburgh, that I kept to the same schedule as I did at home. You know what I'm
Smart.
trying to say? Like, so when I woke up at 2 a.m. our time in Arizona, it's 5 a.m., in Pittsburgh, which is when I would have woken up for the show and started my day and then eat my meal by 5:30 and so on. And because I mean, with my physique, we have, it's very sensitive, and so I've had to be very um, I've had to be very regimented and scheduled, like with my food, my water, my sodium intake. Um, and it's just taken a toll. Like I go to bed between 7 and 8, and it's taken a toll even on my family. My husband, it was hard. North Americans, those last 2-3 weeks, like he was not a happy camper with me. I've been with my husband 17 years on Sunday, and this last Sunday, and we've been married for like 12. And like we it was rocky those last few weeks going into North Americans. He was over, me waking up at 2 a.m. and going to bed at 7 p.m. He was just like, I had been doing it since May. And then I get home from North Americans after earning my pro card. And the thing is, I've been on this schedule for so long that now I can't like sleep in, and
Yeah.
I've really struggled with getting on a normal schedule. And but then again, my pro debut was in San Antonio, which is 2 hours ahead. So I almost kind of had to stay on the same schedule. And then here I am going into a local show in Phoenix, but this is the problem. It's prejudging is now at 9 a.m. It wasn't set it for 10. They recently changed it to 9. And I'm one of those athletes that has to eat a lot before I step on stage to fill out. My metabolism from the time I wake up from until the time I go to bed, it is on fire. My fasted weight is usually actually my heaviest weight. I weigh less in the middle of the day when I'm in meal 2, 3, and 4. I'm actually way lighter. So we have to keep feeding me. So I actually am going to continue. I'm still waking up at 2 a.m., getting in my meals, at the exact same time, because I got to get in like 3 meals of rice and rice cakes, before 9 a.m. for Rising Phoenix.
Yeah.
So like I said, there's a lot of it's a lot, not only physical, your training and your cardio, but there's a lot of mental planning that goes into these shows, when it comes to making sure you're peaking properly for
Mm.
that to get that one look that you have for 20 seconds or 1 minute on stage.
Yes. Oh, I was just thinking about this today because I was like, damn, like I'm 7 weeks post show and I'm still recovering. Like, granted, we're being a bit moderate with my reverse and stuff, but like I'm still recovering. And then the sleep thing has been an issue for me too, where like I'm still getting up super early because I did that for months on end to get my cardio in and eat and then do all my work. So it's like it takes a love and a passion to really commit to this because there's a lot of reward in it, but there's also some like repercussions, I guess you could say. It's even hard to use that term because we're choosing it, but like I understand where you're coming from with needing that mental break because there was a time where my coach was like, well, maybe we could consider doing shows at the end of the year. I was like, absolutely not. I already know I need to grow. I'm not going to get the result I want. I'd rather just stop, and like focus on that. And you have to know as an athlete when it's time to pull back for yourself.
Yes, it's true. I mean, I've been in prepping for 9 months. I mean, I started my prep February 7th. So,
Mm.
and my feedback isn't to grow anymore. So my plan is to just take a very short improvement season. I'm planning just 8, 9 weeks, just post Rising Phoenix, get me through the holidays. As soon as I'm either going to jump right into a prep either after Christmas or New Year's, because I want to hit the ground running early next year. So next year will be the first year that I don't have to wait till May to compete now that I'm not at the national level. So I'm like
Yeah.
excited to, compete early, and I'm hoping to actually compete early February, February, March, April, May at the latest, and you know, do a couple of shows, get some feedback, and maybe take next summer off. My kids are in high school. They only have a few more years of them here at the house, and I've spent the last 4 years, last 4 summers in prep with them. So I would like to, enjoy next summer with them. My grandma's 75th birthday is next June. She wants all of us to grandkids and great grandkids to come. To Wisconsin for that. So I'd like to like hit the ground running really early and beginning of my 2023 season, and then maybe take a little improvement season in the summer, and then either come back in the fall, or if feedback is, hey, you need to grow now, then maybe take off the rest of the year. But for sure, I definitely want to do some shows there in the spring, just to see where I stand.
So awesome. And what do you want to achieve in the IFBB?
Oh, the same as every other bikini competitor. I would love to go to the O. I'd love to just step on the Olympia stage one day. I'd love to maybe one day do Arnold. But yes, I'm planning on going to the O this year to watch it and get some motivation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to, one day step on the Olympia stage. And that's my current goal. I have the on my Apple Watch as the back screen. I have it as, the Olympia. I have the like an Olympia picture on there. So
I love that.
I mean, I have it in steps, of course. I have all my goals written down, and it's not like, I mean, that's not my first, goal was to achieve top 15. And of course, I've already exceeded that and hit top 10. So next goal
Yeah.
is, top 5, and then, be a paid athlete, which most shows in order to be a paid athlete is, top 3, and then qualify for the O. So I have it, I don't plan on just jumping straight to the O. There's stepping stones along the way. So
You respect the process that could be required and you're open to it unfolding how it's meant to for you, it sounds like.
oh yes, because I mean, I've been in this sport already for 4 years. You can see how long the journey can be. And I mean, I plan on competing. When I started competing, I told myself I had like a 10-year plan, like to compete for at least 10 years. So I've been competing this is going to be 2023 will be my 5th season. So I definitely plan on competing for another 5, 6 years. So I just would like to achieve that Olympia goal within the next 5, 6 years.
So, years, not seasons. So if you were to take like let's say a year off, you wouldn't count that or you would?
Hmm. I don't know. I think I would count that as a year.
Yeah,
But I don't know if I could
totally.
ever see myself taking a year off.
Yeah, I was
At
just
least not
curious.
anytime soon. I
Yeah,
love it.
totally.
This is like I was just talking about this with my best friend the other day when we were in San Antonio. I was telling her, like, I look at this as, I mean, yes, it is a hobby for most, but I look at it as a profession, especially now that I'm a pro bikini
Yeah.
athlete. I mean, I look at it, I don't I am a stay-at-home mom, and then I do now lifestyle coaching, bikini coaching, and posing. So I did add that also, but I look at this as a profession, and so this is all I think about and do besides take care of my family. So um, yeah, I don't really see myself stopping anytime soon.
Love that. And prior to being a stay-at-home mom and now a bikini pro, you had worked as a trainer and you really kind of, it sounded like in one of your posts you realized you burnt out and you were giving a lot of yourself to others and not prioritizing yourself. So I'm wondering like what you noticed during that time in your life and how that might have encouraged or changed the way you approach what you do.
Yes. When I first started out as a personal trainer, and so you as a personal trainer, I was able to make my own schedule. Well, as I continued to work for that company, um, I worked myself, up in the industry and went to assistant manager and then manager, club manager of a gym location. And so one that required more and more of me. And then even when I was the club manager, I was still personal training before and after my shift, which was requiring, 10, 12-hour days. And I did that for like 2 years. And my kids were still small and they were in elementary school. And it was just hard to balance like being the mother and wife that I had been and needed to be for them and, manage the gym and personal train and just that, and even take care of my own health. Um, during those 2 years that I managed, I got to my heaviest ever in my life. I got to like, it was like 170 pounds or it was a lot. It was the most I had ever weighed. I remember it was like 150. I don't know why I say 170, like maybe 150 pounds. It was a lot. And so when I finally left the gym from being the club manager, I started focusing on myself and focusing on my goals. Like I said, I prior to getting into competing, I had like prior to actually finally competing, I had been interested in competing for 6 years. I had actually did a like a little like I was gonna try like a little 12-week prep and I did 9 weeks and I got so lean in those 9 weeks, prepping myself and I decided after leaning out for those 9 weeks, I was like, you're never stepping on stage until you get implants because I had nothing after I was done those 9 weeks. So I actually shortly after that I got a breast augmentation and I kind of got lost. My goal got lost there for a little bit. I want to say like for 5 years. Like I said, I went through the whole phase of assistant manager, and then once I left the gym, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this goal that I had 6 years ago of stepping on a bodybuilding stage. And so it was a long process because I had to take off a lot of weight that I had put on. And so I want to say I did 20 pounds by myself, and then I hired a local coach, and then he got me ready for my first bodybuilding show in March of 2019. So it was just, I like really between, getting lost and working as a personal trainer and then, like I said, assistant manager and manager and then also raising my kids. It was all about timing. I had to wait till my kids were a little bit older and more independent, that they could stay home while I did cardio and training. Also, we had to get, our finances. This is a very expensive sport, and we had to, you know, get into the right place, in our life where we could finance this sport. And then also just me mentally and physically needed to find the needed to be in the right space to become a professional bodybuilder. So it's a combination of things.
Absolutely. It's an entire process and there's a lot to consider. And it sounds like now you're in this place where you're excited for the next phase. And I think it's really interesting. You said you were giving yourself like a 10-year timeline and you want to reach the O stage eventually, which is super awesome. And something I like to ask newer pros is what it was like to have more time on stage. Like, did you have fun with it? How did you establish your posing routine?
Oh yes, I loved it. I loved having more time because I always felt rushed, you know, at the national level and amateur level, you're always rushed. The expeditors are always like, you've got 20 seconds, you know, you only have 20 seconds. So it was nice, you know, I want to say there was a lot of I want to say this is, and I was telling that to the girls last weekend when I was in San Antonio Classic, like this is probably I was actually like not nervous. I was like excited. You know, I felt more excited than nervous. It was like probably one of the first times I've ever not really felt nervous getting on stage, just because I just didn't have that pressure. One, the pressure of turning professional, it was off, you know, finally. And then also just I really didn't have a whole lot of expectations, you know, going into this show. I just wanted to get feedback and see where I stood next to these professional bikini competitors. And then, you know, with us getting a minute, it just like, I just felt like I was able to be more flowy and more myself, you know, and add a little flair to our routine, like to my routine. Because when you have 20 seconds, like even when I pose girls, I'm like, okay, we do not have time for hair flips, okay? like, like you need to hit your poses and get off, you know? Like you don't have time for anything else other than to hit your poses. Once you're a pro, then you can add hair flips and all of those fun things. But when you're at the amateur level, you really don't have a whole lot of time. So you just need to show them your best and get off. So I want to say I really enjoyed having more time. The only thing is for me, one of my biggest weaknesses since competing is core control, which is also that's actually how I lost first place at Junior USA's in
Really?
2021. My feedback from Sandy, the reason why she said she moved me out of first and put me in second was because I lost core control on stage. And ever since then, girl, I have been doing vacuums like religiously 6, 7 days a week
That's
because
awesome.
I was like, I will never get that feedback again. I that's one thing. Like when I get feedback, I try to like execute on and like make sure I don't make that mistake again, you know? So um that's one thing I need to and I'm going to continue to work on is now that we have more time, I need to really increase my endurance of core control. So when I was going at the national level, I was you're only on stage 20, 30 seconds. So vacuums were I was doing vacuums for 30 seconds. When I earned my pro card, I changed it to 45 seconds. And my goal is to reach up to a minute. And it's going to take time. You know, it's only been 7 weeks since earning my pro card. So it's going to take time to achieve that. But that's something that I'm going to need to work on through this improvement season for next season is to be able to work up to a minute because especially this show, San Antonio Classic, the way Sandy had it scheduled, you did pre-judging and finals together. Everything was at 2 p.m. So we were on stage we were on stage by 2:05. We did not get off stage until it was like after 3:30, almost 4 o'clock. So we did prejudging and then we did finals. And when she worked us, like when she compared all three call outs. I want to say we 3 or 4 times. So I want to say we were holding our poses for close to
Mhm.
45 minutes on stage. And I know I was cramping. I know other girls, as soon as we got dismissed from prejudging and she was like, okay, you're going to get dismissed. and then you're going to come right back on to do individuals, and then we're going to do call outs for finals. And so all of us girls are all like squatting down, stretching our lower backs as soon as
Mhm.
we got behind that curtain, because we were dying.
Yeah.
Even some of the professionals that have been doing this, that are more, that are veterans, that have been doing this for a while. So, because it was a little different setup, different schedule than your typical bodybuilding show where you have pre-judging in the morning and then finals in the evening. So that was definitely a little curveball right there, for my pro debut, was doing the back-to-back pre-judging and finals, and not being quite experienced and have that level of endurance to hold my core on stage for that period of time still. You know what I mean? So that's
That's a
definitely
great
something I need to
point.
work on.
Yeah, that's a really
Yes.
great point. I love that because there's a lot of people who do struggle with that, and I think it's just it's awesome to hear how you're approaching that to improve. And I remember I want to say it was either at a seminar I went to or something, but Joe Pishkula was like, "Oh, Sandy's biggest thing is if you let that core control go, she will move you." And so
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting now hearing you as a testament to that truth, and really now working on making the improvements you need, and you don't have to put on all this size anymore, but you're still able to see areas for improvement.
Oh yes, everybody still, even when you win first, like like I won 2 pro cards and overall, and there's still room for improvement. I mean, even Miss Olympia still has to. I'm sure.
Exactly.
Actually, I know Jennifer Dory got feedback on what she needed to improve because, like she is part of Fit Body Fusion. So, I definitely know she got feedback. I mean, even Miss Olympia has feedback to work on. It doesn't matter if you're first place or last place, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely. And like, isn't that the beauty of all this? Is like, even when you're at the top, actually, when you're at the top, the target on your back is even bigger. But it's so beautiful
Mhm.
that we get to demand more of ourselves each day. Like, this sport lets us push limits that otherwise maybe we wouldn't push because the world is so convenient now. It's like this gives us a chance to really challenge ourselves.
Yes, and that's why I love this sport. That's why I've been in the fitness industry for 23 years now, because that's what I love about it. It's forever evolving and changing.
So, is that part of what inspired you to start coaching others too, or is there something else behind that?
Um, I wanted to coach others because, one, through my own experience, I've had 3 different coaches, and I've I've done just about everything you can possibly think of, from um, bro science to new science. I've had a couple different posing coaches. I've had a couple of different just there's so many methods out there, and some are healthy and some are unhealthy, and I just want to help other girls achieve their goals in the healthiest way possible. There is a healthy and unhealthy way to do this sport, and I've done both. And I just want other girls to be more knowledgeable on how to do this healthy, just so that they don't have to go through some of the experiences that I went through. Um, just also, I just want to inspire. There's other I'm 35, I'm a mom, I'm a natural athlete, so I just want to inspire other mothers and athletes and women over 35, and show them that they can, do this sport at any age, and that all your goals are possible. It just, you got to put in the time and the work. And I just want to do it the healthiest way. Like I said, there's so many unhealthy ways to get to the stage, and it's just scary, like I like especially these last couple of years, you've had so many great bodybuilders die, and it is scary, you know. And so I just want people to be more educated on how to get to this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great point, and it's nice to have that drive to help others, especially with the experiences that you've had. So, what would you say is your coaching philosophy given all of those experiences you have had?
It's definitely I prefer more of a macro approach. Like, I mean, I do take my even personally take my macros that Ashlyn gives me and make myself a meal plan if I'm in prep. But then also that allows me when I'm not in prep and I'm in improvement season to have more variety. I also don't believe in water loading and depleting and removing sodium from your diet. I don't believe that everyone should be doing 2 hours of cardio. Like this can, like I said, if you track your heart rate, during your cardio and training, if you're giving the intensity that you need, there's no reason, to have to do 2 hours of cardio if you're working in your heart rate zone. Um, so there's just a lot of tools out there, that you can utilize to do this in a healthy manner. There's no need to, go to those extremes.
What would you say someone could start with if they are looking to incorporate heart rate training into their protocol?
So you're gonna take 220 minus your age, okay, and that's gonna give you your max heart rate, and then you're gonna multiply that by 70%, and you're gonna get a number, and then you're gonna multiply that by 90%, and you want to be in that 70 to 90% heart rate range. Anything under 70, you're really just kind of getting in your steps, and anything over 90%, you're gonna start burning your muscle. So you don't want to be over 90%. I mean, there's going to be times like if you're doing a hit where you might get over your that 90%, but it's very temporary. It's a hit. So you're probably not doing it more than say 45 seconds, but like if you're wearing an Apple Watch, it's going to give you your average heart rate during that hit training or during that steady state cardio. And that's what you want to look at, that overall number, and make sure you're in that 70 to 90% heart rate zone. That way you're getting the most out of your cardio and you're not just getting in steps or you're not just burning your muscle. Like we work so hard for that muscle. I've had a few, teammates do that as well, where, they push them so hard, themselves so hard that they start burning away their muscle. And then as the season goes on, they have less and less.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep track of those numbers, because for those reasons, whether it be like you don't want to, that way you're not burning your muscle, but also, like I said, that way you're coming in conditioned the way you're supposed to, um, especially if that's your feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like we're so committed and we put so much work into this. We want to optimize our commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I want to say Ashlyn really didn't like when I got back from Universe and my feedback was to come in more conditioned. And I told Ashlyn I was gonna focus on my heart rate zone. She just left my cardio at, I think at the time I was like at 45 minutes or 50 minutes. And she left it at that and let me make the change to my intensity. And we really didn't have to increase very much from there once I started keeping track of my intensity during those 45 minutes. My highest cardio I got throughout this entire year was going into North Americans. Those 2 weeks that I told you that we really depleted me before reversing, and I got to 70 minutes. That's the most, and that's the most I've ever had to do in my whole career in the last 4 years is 70 minutes. I've never had to do more than 70 minutes of cardio. And it's always, because I, for the most part, have always tracked my heart rate. That, and also I didn't, before working with Ashlyn, I used to, with previous coaches, I used to teach cardio kickboxing. Okay, so I was doing cardio kickboxing and doing the prescribed cardio. So most of my feedback in my first 2 years of competing was I was too conditioned, of an athlete. So that's why I was telling you this year was the first year I've ever gotten that feedback, because in the past it was more I was actually too conditioned, and needed to come in, fuller. So that was one of the probably biggest changes that I made in my career, my competition, competing career was I stopped teaching cardio kickboxing when COVID happened in March of 2020. And that's when I started even developing that more fuller look, was because I wasn't doing quite as much cardio, and the intensity of my cardio kickboxing classes were so high that I was probably definitely burning muscle. So,
And I'm sure too, like just giving your body that break or recovery, like you'd be able to push harder on weights then.
yeah, we noticed a huge change in my physique as soon as I stopped teaching kickboxing, which is part of the reason why I never went back to teaching it after, COVID, calmed down and they started allowing group classes in the gyms again. I never went back to teaching because my goal was to be a, professional bikini competitor. I knew with teaching the classes, if I were, to go back to teaching them, if I did go back, I would have to really be careful on how much I did. I'd have to keep track of my heart rate zone, and make sure that I wasn't exceeding that 90%, in order to maintain my muscle. Because, and I want to say back then, I didn't get my Apple Watch until January of 2020.
Hmm.
So that's why, I mean, I didn't, keep track of my heart rate until then. And so that's what, one of the biggest changes, in 2020 was, by me stopping those classes and keeping track of my heart rate zone. That is what made the biggest difference on bringing that fuller look, and started actually developing that upper body, because that's where it was, seeming to affect me the most, it was my lower body. I mean, legs have always, I was a track runner, cross country runner, and, in middle school, high school. So, and I always, even in high school, I want to say I probably did legs 2 or 3 days a week. Leg day was always my favorite. So I've just built this crazy, foundation of muscle in my lower body. And so it seemed like when I, was in those beginning years of my competing career and teaching the kickboxing classes and, training and cardio, it just, when I did burn, muscle, it was coming from mostly my upper body is what was being sacrificed.
Yeah, and like I think too, with that athletic background, we tend to have more density, like more of a dense look on the bottom, that it can look out of balance with the top.
And that's why, yeah, that was my feedback for my first 3 years of competing, was I did have like a lot of lower body, and I've had to pull back. I mean, my legs and my glutes are way smaller than when I first started competing. That was the first thing when I first got on the stage. My first, 2019 was, you need to bring down your legs. You need to bring down your legs. Um, and the problem that I had in 2020 is, the coach I had me only do one leg day a week for that whole year of 2020. But not only they kept saying bring down your legs, but it wasn't bring down your glutes. Well, when we only
Right.
went to one leg day a week, it brought down my legs and my glutes.
Mm.
So they only wanted me to bring down my legs, my quads, and my hamstrings. And so, when I started working with Ashlyn and she saw, I sent her all my feedback, from all the judges from all my shows from 2019 and 2020. And when she read all my feedback, she was like, okay, we're gonna, well, we went to 3 day leg days a week. Well, started working together that January. By when I got on stage with her in May, they were like, okay, you're good, so we actually had to pull back after that, after, getting on stage in May of 2021. We had to slowly decrease the leg days again because, muscle memory, it came back real fast. So,
Yeah.
but we increased the fullness of my glutes, but we kept my legs small. And so, and that's what was required of me, was I just needed, um, just more glute fullness, but keep my legs, down to where we had brought them down in 2020.
Wow. Well, that's really insightful, and it's awesome that you were able to find what worked for you to create that balanced look. And you've been able to find, like, okay, this is the type of feedback we're working off of and what works best for us. And something I like that you shared earlier too is you consider like every show an experience. And I wanted to touch back on that and just hear how this sport has impacted your life as far as like your social circle, or maybe even your beliefs about yourself and health, because you did mention you have a friend you always I think you said Megan. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just wanted to hear more of your perspective on like the development of a social circle and yourself and your health.
Oh man. Well, uh, oh, this sport has done so much for me.
Oh.
Well, when I started competing, when I just made a decision to start competing, I decided to quit drinking. I was at the time kind of like, um, drinking a lot on the weekends, and I knew like I wouldn't be able to achieve the physique that I was wanting for the stage with, drinking wine every single weekend. It was just
Mhm.
not going to be possible. So that's something that I gave up when I decided to compete, was, that social aspect, which, I didn't realize how much of it was going to affect like my social circle, like, when you quit drinking, it kind of, um, and you stop going out on the weekends and stop going out to, eat and having drinks with your food, and it you don't realize how that affects your social circle. So, I would say I probably lost a lot of friends, that I thought were friends, at the time, when I decided to start competing. Plus the time and commitment and dedication to the sport, requires a lot from us. So you don't always have time for, those um, time to do those things anymore anyway. You know what I mean? Um, and it was funny, like I had told my daughter that I was like, I need to find a friend, um, that isn't competing, that has the same goals, and that I can relate to, and like, cause this sport, I'm sure everyone's heard it before. It can get lonely, like, especially, and I live in this little town, this little city of Yuma, Arizona, and we don't have a lot of bodybuilders here, so there's not a lot of people that can relate to you and locally. And so that's one thing I would say, that, the bodybuilding community is, it's so big. It's just we're kind of all spread out. But
Mhm.
luckily we have social media where we're able to connect with each other through Instagram and Facebook, um, and um, I want to say when I started with Ashlyn, I, I started like getting a roommate for my shows.
Mhm.
And she she had like reached out to, Megan was one of her clients, and Megan had reached out to her asking her if she knew anyone that was going to North Americans in 2021 and that needed a roommate. And I had just said I was going to go. And so she had given her my contact information. And Megan reached out to me and asked if I would room with her. And I said, yes, of course. And and so I roomed with her, and it was her first national show. And of course, at that time for me, it was my fourth national show. So I was pretty experienced and she was very inexperienced. And so I was able to help her and guide her through her first national show experience. And we had such a great weekend, and we just stayed friends and stayed connected after we left North Americans in 2021. And we both took the same like kind of long improvement season last year, 25, 26 weeks. You know, we had the same coach. We did Universe together. We did Masters Nationals together. We did North Americans together. We decided to continue to room together at all of our shows.
Oh,
And it's just, and what I was going to say earlier is that right before I met Megan, I was just telling my daughter that Jalen, how I needed was needing a friend that was kind of, same levels and same level of, like at the same level with me, when it comes to competing and goals and life. And I found Megan, and it was like she was that person I was looking for. And of course
oh,
I've met other people and friends and in this industry, but I definitely found a best friend.
I love
So
that. That's so special.
yes. It's nice. It's hard, because like when you room with people, you don't know, like I've had some good experiences with rooming people, and I've had some bad experiences with rooming with people. So,
Wow.
when you do find that one person that connect with and you vibe with and stuff, you want to keep them because, sometimes the next one might not be as good.
Sounds like a relationship.
Yes, it is. I mean,
It is.
I mean, you get what you put, you get what is that saying? Like you get what you put
You
in,
get out what you
so
put
like
in. Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing, like I said, I was able to help her a lot because it was her first national show. And I think that's what was I love helping people, and I love sharing my knowledge and experience just because I have done so many shows, and I've also been in this fitness industry for so many years that I do enjoy sharing that knowledge and experience with others. And so it was nice being roomed with someone with very little experience. That way I can help her. And it was nice because like, I didn't get that. And that's something um, because I'm in a small city, like the you don't have like all that help from someone that has experience. You kind of you have to like reach out from other areas if you don't live in a big city. That was one thing when I did competing. Like I first was scared to hire somebody like that wasn't local. I was like, oh my God, I gotta hire someone local, like so that they can see me in person. I was kind of scared of the whole online coaching thing. And but then the problem that you have with that is if find someone local, but they really aren't the experience in the bodybuilding industry, can definitely go wrong, and you could have some unhealthy experiences. So I definitely recommend for people to find someone that is very knowledgeable and experienced in bodybuilding and in their division. Um, because even whether it's local or out of town, with technology these days, like we can just do about anything. So don't be afraid to do online coaching, because I mean it can be very personable, with online coaching.
Absolutely agree. I think a lot of times it could be intimidating at first. 'Cause like, I don't know this person. I'm not going to see them. What about this? What about that? But it's evolved so much from its inception, and it really goes a long way. And there's a nice benefit to having that distance too, because you can always get a trainer to help you implement it. But like to have someone who's really knowledgeable and has that expertise, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, because I mean, I see some coaches, like train people like they're, um, for a bikini competition, like as if they're a person, like a lifestyle client. And I'm like,
Right.
and especially in our division, like there's a specific look that they're looking for, like you're not going to get away with doing shoulders 1 day a week, back 1 day a week, glutes 1 day a week, like doing one muscle group 1 day a week. That's just not practical for our division,
Right.
so you definitely want to find somebody that is knowledgeable. That way, your training and cardio and even your nutrition protocol is accurate for what your goals are.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you said that because there are probably people listening who aren't sure and debating on local coach or online coach. And maybe you have a local bodybuilding team, which is awesome. And for sure, still do your research, but don't count out an online coach.
Exactly, I agree 100%.
So, is there anything I haven't asked you yet that you wish that I would have?
Mm, No, I think you asked everything. You did a good job. We've been talking for a while.
I know, it's been awesome. It's been really lovely and you're very insightful. And of course, your experiences speak for themselves. So, why don't you leave us with your best advice? So, best advice for someone who is new to the sport, thinking about competing but hasn't, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
So my best advice for someone that has never competed before is do your research, find a coach, and like we were just saying, um, they don't have to be local. You can do. Don't be afraid to do online coaching. Just make sure you do your research and make sure they're knowledgeable in bodybuilding and your division, and if you are and my best advice for your road to pro is to never give up. My journey is definitely a testament to that. No matter how long it takes you, just don't ever give up because you never know when that next show. You never know that next show could be your show.
Love that. And that was the truth for you.
Yes,
Well,
it
thanks
was.
for sharing that advice and everything else that you did. I'd love for people to be able to reach out to you and follow your journey or even work with you. So, can you let everybody know how they could do that?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Kasie, Kasie Rodriguez, Rodriguez _IFBB Bikini Pro. And I do have Facebook. It's a little more family on there, but it's also Kasie Rodriguez, IFBB Bikini Pro as well. And then I do have email, which is Kasie Rodriguez _ or it's Kasie Rodriguez period IFBB period bikini pro @gmail.com. And I am pretty responsive to everybody on Instagram and Facebook and email. So if you reach out to me, I love, you know, responding and answering questions. So just feel free to reach out and ask me anything. Or if you want to work with me, I do have a link tree in my Instagram bio, and click that link tree, and it will have all of the services that I have available, which are lifestyle, bikini, and posing.
Awesome. And I will put your link tree in the show notes page along with all of your social media profiles. So, to those of you listening, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section and it's alphabetized. So, you'll be able to find not just all the links and resources, but also full breakdown of the episode from a summary to a bulleted list of the topics we covered and episode timestamps so you can go back to specific moments in the episode that stood out to you or even tell your friends and teammates why they should listen that way. So always appreciate you guys tuning in. And Kasie, thank you so much for coming on. This is so awesome and such an honor for me for many reasons, because I have been following your journey for so long now, and I've loved your support of the podcast as well. But just having you on is a really cool moment. So I appreciate you and appreciate that we got to do this today.
Yes, thank you so much, Celeste. I've been looking forward to this interview with you for the last 4 years. Definitely was in my manifestation. I was like thinking about it, like when I turn pro, that means I get to finally get interviewed by Celeste. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
definitely grateful for you having me today and speaking to me and learning a little bit more about my journey.
Of course. I knew it was bound to happen, and it was just a matter of when, and I'm really glad that it happened when it did. I was grateful I got to be there to witness it as well. That was so cool. So I appreciate you just being an example in this sport for so many of us and coming on here to share. And to everybody listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just